Good morning and welcome to the ODPP Cafe. My name is Anita Onuko. I'm your host for the show. The show is brought to you by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. We are live on Facebook at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Kenya. We are also on YouTube at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and on Twitter we are at ODPP_KE. We invite you to follow us. We invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We invite you to engage with us. If you have a question, if you have a concern, you are free to message us. You are free to comment on the comment section, and we'll get somebody to assist you. So this show is brought to inform you. It's brought to you to inform you, to educate you about how the criminal justice sector operates. We come to you so that you may understand what to do when you're either in conflict or in contact with the law, or even maybe your friend or your family. So karibu sana, come and let's learn the law together. So as always, we start with the court highlights. We are going to just take you through a bit of what has happened in the courts and of course what has happened at ODPP this week. For the court highlights, we normally give a disclaimer that it's not the full court report, but just a few highlights that we'd like to bring to your attention. And of course, for the ODPP is about the functions and what has been happening and a few developments from the ODPP. Have a look at what happened in the courts this week.
These guidelines has outlined how our relationship should be, but it also outlines the different laws and legislation and gives you a quick reference guide for those who are involved in investigation and prosecution and other arms, including collection of intelligence, analysis of evidence. It allows them to be able to be more coordinated and cooperating and collaborating together. We ensure that all stakeholders, including the public, through the civil society, are brought on board. So this is a big plus, and that's why we're saying it is significant, because it has taken care of each and every person's interest. I think if you are to look regionally, even continentally, Kenya is doing very, very, very well in combating terrorism. Of course, terrorism is a crime that can be done by a lone ranger. It can be done by sleeper cells that probably officers have not been able to identify. So it is very significant. And these guidelines are very important for Kenya. And what they seek to do is, first of all, to ensure that the agencies are talking together and are working together and see themselves as one. So the guideline has brought all the agencies together and has outlined each and every role, and it has gone as far as incorporating new concepts of de-radicalization and also analysis of following the money, because if you are able to follow the money, then you are able to also tell who is really financing the terrorists and how are they able to do what they are doing, because they can't be able to do that without funding. It has allowed us also to interact with international players, and we've gotten expertise from around the world to help us come up with a very effective tool that will give us the skills required to combat terrorism more effectively in the future. These rules safeguard Kenyans. They ensure that all of us who are tasked with this work follow the law and the rule and adhere to the rule of law. I think that is the most important dividend that will accrue to Kenyans. And also, it ensures that they have access to justice, and everyone will have an opportunity to defend themselves. As you know, constitutionally, everybody is innocent until proven guilty.
Tunaahidi mashtaka yenye haki na usawa.
So this morning we are at the Prosecution Training Institute. In short, we call it PTI. PTI is located in Loresho, and it is an institution that is run by the ODPP. And we've been here before, and of course, we'll take you around once some renovations are complete. But for today, we've been here to launch a very important guideline. And I have with me some guests on the show who are very key to the development and even the launch of this guideline. I want to introduce them to the show and allow them to actually tell us who they are and what their role was on this project. Before I give you the name of the project, it's quite a mouthful. But karibu sana, and karibu to engage with us. So I'll start with the lady. Please tell us your name and your role in this project.
Thank you, Anita. My name is Alma Wanyama. I'm a senior technical advisor with the European Union AML THB project, which stands for Anti-Money Laundering and Trafficking in Human Beings project, that also deals with CT and CFT matters.
So when you say CT?
Yes, that is counter-terrorism and counter-financing of terrorism.
Okay.
Yes.
Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you.
And just for the audience, the DPP today in his speech said that Alma is the one who came up with the name. So it is anti-money laundering and...
Yes.
THB is?
Anti-money laundering and trafficking in human beings. Actually, it's supposed to read anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism, counter-financing of terrorism, and trafficking in human beings. So we had to shorten it somehow.
You still have to shorten it, I think.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the Greater Horn of Africa, where are you looking at? Where does the project?
We have 16 countries under our scope. So we have 10 countries that we cover within the Greater Horn of Africa. That includes IGAD countries and EAC countries. And then we have we've recently added 6 more countries from the Southern Africa.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So is it just about terrorism that you do in these regions?
No. That's why the title includes also trafficking in human beings.
Okay.
Yes. So that is what we've been covering for the last 3 years.
Okay.
If we count our predecessor project, which was AML CFT.
Oh, Lord.
we are counting a total of 7 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. But now to include the other transnational organized crime, we are going to start in September. Now that will be AML TOC. I think that is shorter.
You are full of them.
Yes.
Those things, yes. But karibu sana to the show. We use this show to educate people about different projects and policy launches that are happening in the criminal justice sector. And of course, it's powered by the ODPP. So as we talk about this thing, let's remember the audience. They are really not, they're like me. We are not lawyers. We are not, so break down things for us. Ndio tuelewe vizuri. So, but then karibu sana to the show. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Karibu sana, Mr. Sang. You gave an awesome speech today. But first, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anita.
Yeah.
My name is Michael Sang. I'm the head of counterterrorism and international, transnational, and organized crime division of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. It's a pleasure to be here.
Even yours is a mouthful. Yes. Come again.
It's the head counterterrorism and international, transnational, and organized crime division.
I will not repeat it. But then I have a question for you as we start the discussion.
All
so
right.
when we were earlier talking about terrorism,
Yes.
our view of terrorism is when we see big things happening. You know, those big events, a bomb and many people dead. But then I want you to define for us terrorism. Is it exactly what you're saying? Does it have to be manifested like that?
Not really. The definition of terrorism is something that has been controversial, even in various jurisdictions, even internationally. There is no single definition of terrorism. I know you've come across this comment that is made off the cuff by many people that, you know, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Oh, yeah.
So that is just a comment that would commonly be used in urban lingua. Terrorism, as far as Kenya is concerned, under the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2012, terrorism is not just, it's not defined. What is defined is terrorism acts. That is what the law envisions. And these acts are numerous, and they are elaborated in the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Internationally as well, we do not have a single definition of terrorism.
But when you talk about terrorism and terrorism acts, so what do you mean?
When you talk about terrorism acts, one of them is what you just pointed out.
Okay.
Just an explosion somewhere.
Yeah.
And someone has some ideology. Someone has put something in his mind, and he says, I have an ideology. It could be any ideology. It could be an ISIS ideology. It could be an Al-Shabaab ideology, or any other terrorist group for that matter. Once they carry out that attack, or give a threat to carry out such an attack, then that can be considered as a terrorist act. The threat can be considered as an act. The act itself can be considered as an act. So the whole point of the Prevention of Terrorism Act was to leave it open, so that at every point it is for the investigator or national security organs to flag out and identify what was the purpose of this attack. So the purpose is what gives impetus to the definition of what an act is.
Okay, there's terrorism financing.
That's correct.
I think it's a new term. At least for us, the audience and the commoners, mwananchi, terrorism financing has not been one of those things we actually think about. We just think about terrorism. So what is terrorism financing?
Well, that's another word that does not have really one single definition. But I'll just give you a clue. Terrorism financing has been there quite some time. It's just that in various jurisdictions, investigators have not been focusing more on terrorism financing. But it does happen, and right now it's getting more focus because, as you realize, there are not so many incidences of bombs and explosions anymore. But there are more, there's a lot of movement of money from one jurisdiction to another, from one financier or facilitator or a logistician for that matter, whoever is supporting terrorism. Now, to support terrorism, they move money. And when they move money, it's supposed to support those acts. Some of those acts could be acts to just buy weapons. Some of those acts could be connected to organized crime. You know, I would say radicalization, for instance. Someone could sponsor a particular mosque, you know, so that radicalization is done, recruitment is done in that mosque, so that those young boys or those young girls can be able to participate in a terror act in a different jurisdiction or in this country. So by sponsoring radicalization or sponsoring the recruitment of young men into violent extremism, that already is an act of terror and has been financed. So the financing happens in many
different ways.
Exactly.
All right. Alma, we are here to launch this document. I'm totally, I don't want to give it, to mention it because I find it quite a mouthful. So it is an interagency guidelines on
cooperation and collaboration in the investigation and prosecution of terrorism and terrorism financing.
So, tell us the journey up to when we got up to the launch now.
Yes, yeah. So this journey started in June of last year.
Okay.
That is 2021. And we were in Vipingo. The AML-THB project sponsored an activity in Vipingo. And this, I won't call it a training or a workshop. Let me call it an activity. We had city prosecutors, we had ATPU officers, and we had our colleagues from JCTAC, and we also had the facilitators who basically form part of this task force. Yeah, because we had NCTC, we had the judiciary, we had ARA, we had FRC. Yeah. So the facilitators formed part of the multi-agency setup. And when we were there, we did an activity that was case-based, scenario case-based. We introduced a case that ran from day 1, and we had a 3-judge bench on day 4. So it was a simulation exercise. And during this exercise, of course, we had daily presentations up to the last day where we had this kind of a setup of a moot court. So many issues came up. And one of the issues that were glaring was multi-agency cooperation.
Yeah.
And from there, then the discussion started that we really do need guidelines on cooperation. Because each agency had their own mandates. You have how you know things are supposed to be done, but then how will the other agency know at what point in your role they can come in?
Yeah.
And that is now where we said, let us. We got a request from ODPP to assist in coming up with such guidelines so that we can fill such gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had the initial meetings, of course, to kind of come up with how this will happen. And at first, we came up with 4 workshops. Each was a full week. And we did the workshops from January up to date. There were 4 workshops, and then I can tell you the debates were very heated. So we really had to add a final 5th workshop so that everything can be now finalized. Yeah, to make sure each and every point has been addressed. Yeah, because every single point mattered.
Yeah.
So that is what we did. We added a 5th one, and then here we are, where the document has been finalized, accepted by the principals, and it has eventually been launched.
What was the significance of the principals, each of them signing this document? Why did we need to have them sign the document?
It was significant. It is very significant to have them sign because it shows that they agree with the contents of the guidelines.
Yeah.
Yes,
and like other documents that you normally launch, we never actually see people signing, in as much as there are always those multi-sectoral policy documents. This one was quite significant because there were so many principals and all of them had to sign. Yeah, it
is very important, and also to recognize that the principals represent institutions, and this guideline targets institutions. Yeah. So for a principal to sign on behalf of the institution, it means that the institution itself are not bound, but really they have the go-ahead to engage what is in the guidelines.
The guideline.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was the importance of, say, an institution like, say, what, immigration? Why did we need them in the room? Or how did you get to partner?
You know, when you talk about terrorism, this is a transnational organized crime.
Yeah.
Meaning it goes across border. You need immigration because they're the ones charged with that responsibility. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Sang, just give us a bit of of why the ODPP was involved in this, because there are so many principles, yet this has been launched under the ambit of the ODPP. What was the role of the ODPP, or why is it important that this document has been launched and is actually a document by the ODPP?
Well, firstly, I'll quickly just go into the law, make reference to Section 50, subsection 3 of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Act 2013. This specific provision empowers the Director of Public Prosecutions, or gives him the mandate to reach out to the Inspector General of Police and other law enforcement agencies to develop guidelines on cooperation and collaboration in the investigation of crimes. So it's an open window where the DPP can reach out to any agency and find areas of cooperation. In this situation, the discussion was terrorism. And we were able to take advantage of that provision that is in the law and to reach out to other agencies. It was in the wisdom of the DPP to reach out to, and his leadership for that matter, to reach out to other agencies and also seek to cooperate and seek the support of the EU AML THB project.
I like that this thing flows very easily with you guys. EU AML THB project, yes. I'm getting it.
Yeah, we've been engaging them for quite some time, and
it's become
it's now become, you know, like the lingua that we are now used to.
All right.
So it was very important for that, and it is good. And I really want to thank each and every principal and each and every agency, because it's not only an operation of the law that can make people gather in one room. It's not just Section 53. They also heeded the DPP's clarion call, and they found a value in coming to engage with the ODPP, coming to formulate and develop these guidelines. Terrorism and terror financing is something that is something to focus seriously, because we've had a lot of incidences in this country, if you may recall, from the Norfolk terror attack, and we've come all the way to Dusit and to Westgate and to Garissa University. Very unfortunate. So out of that call by the DPP to other agencies, I think it gave them impetus to quickly come, gather together, engage, work together, find areas of consensus so that we can be able to fight, just like Alma mentioned earlier, to fight, to counter terrorism and to counter the financing of terrorism. So under one umbrella. And that is why you see the significance of the signing. It's symbolic. It shows goodwill. It shows dedication. It shows commitment, what Alma alluded to earlier. Because if each and every agency and the principal of it and every agency can sit down in one table and sign and say, we are endorsing these guidelines, we want to operationalize these guidelines, we want to work together and combat terrorism and terror financing in this country. It speaks volumes as far as the war against terror is concerned.
What was the scenario before these guidelines? Because these guidelines is definitely filling in a gap.
The gap is just having the collaboration and coordination efforts of the agencies in a document. Yeah, but there was ad hoc. It was happening. Yeah. That is one thing about the agencies here in Kenya. The common threat is terrorism and terrorism financing. That is already identified. So agencies have been working together even before. Just that now it has been solidified into a document. Yeah.
Okay. Quite. So what next? Guidelines have been launched. What next?
It's an important question. Maybe I'll jump in before my colleague. It's important because now the next phase is to sensitization, to ensure that everybody knows that this document is in existence. It's one of our guidelines. And so that everybody, and I'm talking about the media, I'm talking about citizens, I'm talking about practitioners, I'm talking about judicial officers and other collaborators of justice to know that this document is in existence. There is, it has streamlined a lot of issues as far as investigation and prosecution is concerned. And it is something that we feel is a milestone. In East Africa and Central Africa, we do not have any country that has guidelines. So Kenya is a pioneer.
Oh.
Kenya is a pace setter.
Is it? Even in the countries you operate in?
Yes, yes.
So are you
Kenya
going
is
to
a
do the
pioneer.
same in other countries?
Yes, in fact, I'll respond just after
Yeah,
Michael
all right.
has finished
Okay.
on that.
All right, finish. Yeah.
Yeah, so Kenya is a pace setter in coming up with these guidelines.
Yeah.
And as you asked earlier, what's the next process? I mentioned only sensitization.
Yeah.
The next is operationalization. The next is implementation. That's where we are headed, implementing, so that we can see how these various agencies are working seamlessly together
Yeah.
to combat terrorism and terror financing, and also to help our young men, or young boys and girls, to move away from violent extremist ideologies and to focus more on building the nation and other patriotic values
Yeah.
that are of value to this country.
Have you found out why they lean towards this sort of it's like an income they're looking for to earn income from these activities? Have you found out why the youth are so prone or are pulled into these spaces? Because it's sometimes not really about religious extremism. It's just about maybe poverty. So then the other question is, when you talk about sensitization, how do you intend to sensitize them, like on these developments? Because I don't think you'll take to them the book.
Yes, you're right. And then poverty is one thing. There are socioeconomic concerns that drive, that you would call as drivers, to join the jihad arena. But then again, it's not only socioeconomic. Sometimes it's a loss of identity or a lack of identity, so to speak, amongst the young men. And that is why the National Counterterrorism Center is very important. They've been very active in reaching out to the communities. As you can see in the guidelines, there's a specific guideline on community engagement.
Okay.
And there's a specific guideline on disengagement.
Okay.
Now, disengagement is a preserve. It's carried out. They have the mandate, the National Counterterrorism Center, to conduct disengagement. And they have other tools, within their midst. They have so many programs. And there's even a strategy, the national strategy to counter violent extremism. This is something that the National Counterterrorism has been implementing. So the guidelines mirror and they complement the work of the National Counterterrorism Center. And when I talk about sensitization and reaching out to communities, we are going to explore that window that NCTC as a lead agency is already working on. So we will work with NCTC to ensure that we reach out to the communities for purposes of sensitizing them on the guidelines and also moving them out of ideologies that are violent
and destructive.
And also flagging out the dangers, the danger signs, the red flags that the recruiters use to attract them to the jihad arena. Those are aspects that during sensitization will come up.
Okay. The cafe is meant to sensitize as well. So you need to come back and actually now talk to them, because I know, like I'm saying, they will not want to know what's in the document. They just want to know what's in it for me.
That's right.
Why do I need to know this?
That's right.
So you're saying something, Alma. You're meant to contribute to something.
Yes. Just to top up to what Sanga said, everyone who participated in the drafting of this guideline is an ambassador of the institution. Before we even go to a large kind of sensitization, they themselves are able to sensitize their fellow colleagues, fellow colleagues, either through their training schools, or just in the office about these guidelines. Then, of course, we come where now sensitization maybe in a multi-agency setup.
Yeah.
Different levels of chain of command, the managers, the operation, and the operational people being sensitized differently. Yeah. So it can be done institutionally or even as a multi-agency setup through the support of partners. Yeah. And you asked about the other countries, this being a first.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things the EU AML THB project.
Yes. Now I get it. EU AML THB, yes.
Project, yes, implemented by Civipol.
Yeah.
One of the things we want to do is to replicate what we've done here in the countries that are under our scope, in as far as their laws allow.
So within the same context of terrorism and terrorism financing?
Yes. And not necessarily, like I said, within what their laws allow. Some might be talking about human trafficking.
Yes.
Others, their laws talk of, but AML. Mostly AML, because when you talk about an organized crime, in this case terrorism, there has to be an aspect of terrorism financing, meaning there's an aspect of money laundering.
Yes.
Yeah. So those issues are what now
they're all AML.
Yeah.
I learned something. I have learned something today.
Yeah.
From here now is a sensitization and talking to the different groups about this project.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. So then I want to thank you for coming to the show. I don't think I want to keep you here for too long, unless you have something you want to say.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Or for having us in this show to have a discussion on this very important topic. As you said, the Café also is an avenue for sensitization.
Yes.
So I would just like also the audience to find a copy of the guidelines.
Where do we find it? On the website?
Yes.
Okay.
It's available on the website.
Yeah.
It's now up.
Yeah.
To just pass through.
What's in the guidelines, by the way, Sang? You're the one who introduced it today during your speech. What's
there are so many
an
things.
Overview, just content, yeah.
Yes, there are so many things that we have captured. Of course, talking about cooperation and collaboration, you have to talk about sharing of information. You have to talk about what is the role of each agency.
Wow.
And how that role, falls in to the focus of terrorism and terrorism financing investigations and prosecution in a seamless fashion. So that is what is in the guideline, the role of each and every agency. And how to fuse those roles together so that we can be able to achieve our desired objectives, which is sharing knowledge, sharing information, and sharing resources to combat terrorism and to combat terrorism financing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you, Alma.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, karibu tena.
Asante.
Alma, final words?
I'd just like to say thank you for having me and Mr. Sang on this panel of discussion, and also to thank ODPP for this noble initiative and all the principals and agencies who accepted the call and took part in the process and also in the launch. And to also thank my project director, who I'm representing, Mr. Frederick Bayard, who also took up the call and has been supportive all the way up to today. Okay. Yes. All right. And to the EU, to the donors, and to Civipol, I also want to say a big thank you to them. All right. Yeah, this will not have happened without all the wheels rolling. Yeah. Yes.
I think I heard the deputy ambassador say that the EU invested, I don't know if they got it right, $5 million?
Yes, 5 million euros in the project.
Oh yeah, on the yes. Yeah. I heard us talk about it, quite a substantial amount. Meaning this is important.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this is quite important.
It is. The 5 million euros is to cover the whole 3-year lifespan of the project. And something like this is actually very huge. Yeah. And just to drop something that we've also been funding the Financial Reporting Center, still on issues on AML. Yeah. Yeah, to sensitize on AML and CFT issues. Yeah,
CFT was what again?
Counter-financing of terrorism and anti-money laundering. Yeah, which we've done to compliance bank officers in the countries within the country, the whole country. So it was done, clustered into regions. So you see, it targets the private sector, as well as the government institutions. Yeah.
Something I always like asking on this show is, so what is the role of the citizen in all this? Where do I fall in countering terrorism, and unless I don't have a role as a citizen in both countering terrorism and countering terrorism financing? Do I have to have the money to be able to do something about it? Or is there a role that I have to play, maybe in reporting what I'm seeing, you know? So what is the role of the citizen in all this? Because you can't just be doing things for the agencies, and so where am I?
First, don't become a terrorist.
No, I do not want to be. I do not intend to be.
The first role. That is the first role of the citizens.
Yeah.
Yes. So what do you want, Yeah.
Well, the first role for any citizen is reporting. Reporting any suspicious incidences or any suspicious activities. And we've had, the law enforcement agencies have had a lot of tip-offs from members of the public about suspicious activity. And in some cases, those suspicious activities have turned out to become either preparatory acts, with targeting
intentions and all.
Exactly.
Is there a
Intentions and
framework?
motives of that
Is there a
nature.
framework for protecting me when I report this?
Yes.
Because this is big, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
The framework is there.
Uh-huh.
Remember, we have, other than the Prevention of Terrorism Act, we have other laws as well. We have the Witness Protection Act,
yeah.
and we have other laws as well, and other measures to protect anyone who is, even the whistleblowers. You remember there was a Whistleblowers Act. Even though it does not really focus so much on terrorism, and it focuses on other forms of organized crime. But remember, you cannot talk about terrorism and close your eyes to organized crime. There are so many organized crime activities, like gun running networks that are operating in some places in this country, and monitored, of course, by law enforcement.
Yeah.
We have human trafficking networks and human smuggling networks that draw funds and fund terrorism. So you have to have a holistic view when you're talking about terrorism.
Yeah.
So for citizens, reporting is first thing. If you see someone who you suspect to be a human trafficker, or if you're seated in a bus somewhere traveling from one part of the country, let's say where we get a lot of challenges with trafficking and human smuggling, is from the Moyale border coming into Nairobi and other places in various areas in northeastern province coming to Nairobi. If you're seated in a car and you see something funny, you see something, people exchanging national identity cards. Why would they be exchanging national identity cards? Probably that is a fake ID. Probably
maybe it's even yours, you lost it.
Maybe exactly.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that ought for a citizen, any citizen should report. So reporting is number one. Another thing is to participate in. There are so many nyumba kumi policing activities. Know your neighbor. These are things that, of course, the law enforcement has been able to reach out to various citizens of this country to say, be friendly to law enforcement, be friendly to police, so that law enforcement agencies can be able to work with you very much,
I'll also call on the police to be very friendly to us.
Exactly. The police have been friendly. It's only that the media, and I'm not talking about the cafe, the media out there has not been fair on many occasions.
We should ask them, but they're not here. So we hope that they'll act with fairness as they go forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well, so I'd just like to close it because I think I'll have additional questions every other time I say finally. But then thank you so much once again. Yes.
Yeah. Just before you close, one more comment.
Yeah.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Nudin Haji, for his wisdom, for his foresight, and for his leadership. We would not have gotten here if it is not for his support.
Yeah.
And him initiating this process by reaching out to the EU AML THB team. I'd also like to thank Ms. Alma Wanyama, Senior Technical Advisor. She's been very instrumental from the beginning. From when that request was made, she took it up, and in a few weeks, we were able to have this engagement. So I thank the EU team for the support that they gave ODPP towards realizing this milestone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm also glad that you came to the cafe to sensitize people. I know someone has learned something like me, despite having problems at first in the title, But I'm reading something here: disrupting criminal trafficking and smuggling networks through increased anti-money laundering and financial investigation capacity in the Greater Horn of Africa. So ladies and gentlemen, that is what Alma does. And she does it very well. And today we were here on a different mission to launch the guidelines to counter terrorism and to counter terrorism financing. And you've heard from Mr. Sang and Ms. Alma exactly what the project was about and the journey towards this launch. And they hope to do this in other countries, at least according to Alma. And of course, the ODPP, being a national agency, expects to work with other agencies to sensitize you, the public, and other agencies, even the media, in understanding what they should know about terrorism and terrorism financing. So with that, I want to come to the end of the program, and I want to wish you well this Friday, a restful weekend, and let's catch up on Monday to see exactly what we'll be talking about. You can ask your questions, we'll respond to you, you can comment, and also, just like I said earlier, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our Twitter, at our YouTube channel, and of course engage with us on Twitter. Thank you so much and have a blessed weekend. God bless.